Good morning, welcome to the Tulip Airway channel. This is video 2 in a series of 6 in which we learn how doctors make life-saving decisions for other people. This whole life and death decisions theme came from my experience with the Tulip Airway, because that's exactly what doctors have to do when they adopt the Tulip Airway, because it's involved in resuscitation and airway management, so basic life support, etc. So if learning how to make critical decisions is your thing, then I recommend you like and subscribe so that you get notified with the other videos as they are released. So everything that I'm about to discuss is based on the book Life and Death Decisions: How Clinicians Really Choose New Medical Technology. So, and the reason I wrote that book is because if you create a new life-saving piece of equipment, in order for it to do what you hope it will do, it has to actually be used by everybody. It has to get everywhere and it has to spread. So, you know, inventing an airway is great, but it's and I know that it's a lot about the delivery, the execution. So I really needed to learn some new things. Now, so just to go sort of like slightly about my background, it's basically medical MBA invention. I had to learn how to use CAD systems, learn about manufacturing, production. I had to do the graphics, for all of the stuff, the clinical trials, had to publish it, had to present it. Then you have to go through the regulation, that takes years. Learn something about advertising, learn about medical sales. So everything that is in life and death decisions is based on real world experience and training. So it's not like, sorry, I'm not 25 years old and trying to give you some advice. But look, even with all of that, it just wasn't enough, right? And then I noticed something new, something nobody had ever said, nobody ever revealed to me. And that is what life and death decisions is all about. How do doctors make a critical decision? Like, so when selling Tulip, how are they going to decide? So, this paradox comes around because, a lot of medical innovations fail, and that's not because they don't work, because they usually do, right? But quite often the people who are putting it out there misunderstand how medicine works, and that's what, life and death decisions is about, all right? Because basically there's a big gap, okay? Hospitals aren't like development environments and etc. They're different, okay? Basically hospitals are busy, you have to get on with it. The show must go on is applies equally to hospitals, quite frankly. They're unpredictable, we have to get on with it, decide quickly, make sure the outcomes are good. But look, so that means if a device disrupts my workflow, how quickly I can anesthetize somebody, how quickly we can recover them, if it increases complexity, I'm not quite sure, then it's kind of not worth the effort. Even if the tech is better, it's like, well, yeah, sort of, but you're wasting my time slowly. So three main reasons innovations fail, right? Quite a lot, they rely on evidence, and I made that mistake. Look at this clinical trials, wow, aren't they great? But, whilst clinical trials are important, it's really more about experience. So the second reason that most innovations fail is because they don't understand how important it is to get on with the job. Okay, you can't slow down an anesthetic list. You can't, slow down immunization, flow, stuff like that. So a new device has to fit naturally into clinical practice. Otherwise, adoption either stops or slows down, considerably. So the third reason, quite often, that innovations fail is it's straightforward misunderstanding of the psychology behind clinical decisions, right? Doctors are trained to be cautious. I mean, that's not a surprise, so that basically therefore sets up a natural resistance to change. But that's not, them being stubborn. It's them being responsible, and you have to cross a threshold in order to achieve some sort of satisfactory understanding. So what is it that things like Tulip, etc., and other innovations did successfully? Okay, they should be intuitive. You should just get it. And that's a common characteristic amongst them all. And the other thing that Tulip does is it simplifies an existing process. I mean, Tulip gets rid of all sorts of other equipment. It reduces costs because it does that. And because it works so effectively, Tulip allowed clinicians to gain confidence really quickly. And, 3 life saves in 6 months was just, that changes a person's perception from the very core. So, in selling Tulip, the real understanding was that these factors help explain why, Tulip worked and others didn't. Okay, and basically that, but it's not technology that changes medicine, it's the trust. Okay, so what I had to learn that was new wasn't just the science of medicine. It wasn't just the MBA of business. It was the psychology of sales adoption of clinical technology, right? So I had to learn to think like you think. Okay, and that's what's explored in life and death decisions. So the insight on the psychology, right? Basically status quo bias. Okay, that's what it is. It basically keeps whatever's in place in place. So therefore, that is the hurdle that any new medical technology must overcome before it can be adopted. Okay, because people already prefer the past. So that is based upon that conservative mentality of doctors where the status quo is feeling safer than any change because there's always an element of uncertainty in change. Now that basically is all based, seems to align beautifully with status quo bias by William Samuelson and Richard Zuckhauser. But again, this is something that I picked up on during the sales of Tulip. So the sales insight, okay. So they're kind of okay. What did I learn in that side? You can't increase thinking time. You can't slow people down, okay? Because if it's complex, it increases thinking, and that's not a good thing. Basically, simplifying makes things more easily adopted. Now, Tulip does that. So that again is, sort of in line with what Paradox of Choice says by Barry Schwartz, and it's now, very much like my own thinking. So the real learning point for me was it's like not every technology gets adopted. It's the ones that simplify, save time, make things easier. They're the ones that do get adopted. A clinician can't be forced to rethink everything, and that's what a Tulip does. Now, basically, life and death decisions is now available on Amazon. So the next video is about the moment when doctors decide to make a clinical decision, trust a new device. Um, I recommend that you like and subscribe, and then you'll be notified when that gets released. I'll see you then.